good afternoon. Thank you for being at Carter Friday seminar. And my name is Yu Zhang. I'm a professor from Civil and Environmental Engineering. So this seminar actually sponsored by the department and also Carter Center for Urban Transition Research, as well as facilitated by IT student chapter. So today we have Mr. Chang Huffine with us, and he's a local transition expert with extensive experience in transition planning and traffic engineering. So he has worked for more than 37 years in transition industry, and performed and managed many projects in traffic operations, traffic safety, transition corridor planning, traffic signal coordination, and the traffic impact analysis. So he's currently serving as traffic and planning practice lead for the firm Mad and Hunt. He's also serving as the chair of the Traffic Engineering Council for the Institute of Transition Engineers. So let's welcome Mr. Huffine, and thank you for being here.
Thank you. Okay, thank you for having me here and letting me present about this interesting project. It's going to be a little bit of a hybrid presentation. We're going to talk about some technical stuff in here, but it's also kind of gives a little highlight on careers a little bit and different direction that can be taken. She said 37 years been at this. Now I'm actually the project manager for the City of Clearwater IDIQ on-call project. I'll talk more about that in a minute. I work for Mead and Hunt, and I'm also currently chair of the IT Traffic Engineering Council. So I'm really involved in a lot of the new policies that comes out, a lot of the research that's going on from the ITE perspective. So let's see. Yeah. That's international. Yep. Yep. The whole thing. Mostly nationally. Most of the stuff we do is in North America, but we have Australia, New Zealand, and a few other areas where there are chapters too. But yeah, this is for the whole thing. Basically, the careers that we have here are, I like to loosely combine them into three basic areas. You're getting familiar with one, academics, okay? Academics where we get a lot of the research done and really advancing the profession in new technologies, new areas. Then there are the public sector and the private sector. Public sector is the point at which we interface directly with the public, really working on getting transportation working efficiently and safety. Their connections to the government, connections to the neighbors, they make everything happen. And the consultants, what we do is kind of help both academics and the public sector by providing manpower and specific expertise. Those are, you guys are learning everything that's in traffic and transportation planning, design, everything like that. There's a lot of different expertise needed. And it's very challenging for any one person to have all that. And it's also a manpower thing, too. It's not cost effective if a town or a city or a county like that has enough staff to do all the projects all the time because the workload goes up and down. And so they bring consultants in to come and help out with various types of things, specifically project planning and design. We've also done a lot of long-range planning, transportation improvement plans, implementation, traffic impact study reviews and permitting. That's big here in Florida now with all the growth coming on. It seems constant now. Overviewing and reviewing traffic operations, trying to optimize that and keep operations safe as well. And then also they can assist in construction reviews and inspection, many other areas in addition to these. These are kind of just the overview. But Mead and Hunt specifically has done quite a bit in assisting municipalities. This is just a small list of what we've done across the country, and it really seems to be an important way now to be able to access consultants doing what's called IDIQ or on call. Uh, Basically, you can have one project. You have a big project, like say I-4. They're going to widen I-4, which they're going to do at some point here. Uh, and you may hire consultants, consultant teams to be able to work on that one project. Well, for a municipality like Clearwater, they may or may not have bigger projects, but they have a whole bunch of little things that may need to be undertaken and looked at. For example, safety evaluations, signal coordination and retiming, traffic impact study reviews, a whole bunch of stuff like that. The easy way to do this is through an IDIQ or on-call contract. That way you have a team under contract, and if something comes up, all you have to do is get them to submit a fee and a scope and agree on it, and they can go right off and do it. You don't have to go through all of the contracting steps each time to do this, and it makes it a lot more efficient and faster to get things done. Uh, it could account for varying scopes and workloads too. So if there are no needs at a particular time, use the on-call contract. But if there's a lot of work and there are a lot of things that need to get done, you can assign a lot of stuff, and very often these firms have the resources in locally and other areas to bring in to be able to work on those things. It's really good, especially for municipalities, because it costs a lot to hire people and bring them in, and uh, a lot of the municipalities don't have enough staff to do all the things they need, nor do they need them either, because again, up and down type of thing. If they have enough to handle all of their needs, then there are times they'll be sitting around with nothing to do. So bringing specialized expertise in, that's a main reason. Because again, as you see in the academic environment, there's a lot of changes, a lot of new stuff coming out in technology and different techniques to approach problem solving. So consultants can tap into that and provide access to that and bring that one available. Uh, Staff changes happens all the time. So uh, you'll see in Clearwater what Mead and Hunt is helping with now is there's been some changes in staff. We can provide a bit of continuity in that until the new staff comes in and gets up to speed in what's going on. And then we can provide some specialized training to that staff as well, if needed. All right, let's get into Clearwater here. So you're going to take a look at needs here. And to be honest, especially in Florida, Clearwater is no different than any other municipality, county, FDOT, same issues. The growth has been tremendous here. And I don't care how good planners were 5, 10 years ago, there's no way they could have anticipated the amount of growth that's happened, especially in the area here. The west coast of Florida has been tremendous. So uh, a lot of infrastructure needs to be upgraded. New infrastructure, new roads needs to go in. Uh, New safety problems have emerged. But at the same time, a lot of recruitment challenges. When you graduate, you're going to be in good shape at this point. Nobody can find enough people to hire. We can't right now. And this is before even, Governor DeSantis just passed like $11 billion transportation funding. Add that on to the billions of dollars in federal funding that's about to come out. And there's going to be a lot of demand, a lot of work going on for at least the next 5 to 10 years, I would think. So it's challenging to find people available to be able to do that and hire them. Another reason why we've been helpful in Clearwater, we talked about it, is functioning as an extension of staff. And this is where the IDIQ stuff comes in and really plays an important role, because if something comes in and let's say, okay, a citizen has requested something, they see a problem and they'd like the city to look at it. Well, the city doesn't always have the people available to do it. So they can call up a consultant and say, hey, can you take a look at this, find some solutions, give us some recommendations. And so we really can function as if we remember their staff. Quick response, quick turnover. Talked about specialized expertise and the quick response. So that's really what we're doing with that. We have organized it so far. We've been working on this for, I guess, about 2.5 years. And it initially started out with this initial task one. It's gone into four uh, overarching tasks, what I'm calling. The main one is this on-call traffic engineering support. And this is where we cover that day-to-day stuff that needs to be done. And I'll go over some of these in specific detail of what we've done so far. But, if there's a study that needs to go on, identified problem at an intersection, if we have to review some plans for a design project that's underway, or a developer project too, to reviews like that. Parking, micromobility studies. Micromobility is huge now. You see the scooters and everything else going on. And taking a look at how to be able to handle that safely, um, and interacting with the vehicle traffic. Bicycle and pedestrian circulations, right with that. The demand for those modes continues to go up. Traffic calming, Vision Zero traffic studies. Vision Zero is safety, trying to eliminate highway deaths as possible, get things as safe as possible, help with that. Traffic impact studies, preparing and reviewing them. Uh, any types of studies that need to go on. Consultants can help with that, and we've been working on that. Traffic control device assessment, not only signals, but signs, conditions, timings, warrants. We do all that stuff. And then the staff assistants and the review technical reports, attend meetings, grant applications. Those are all the things that just tend to come up and that we can help with. Grant applications have been particularly big because there are a lot of big grant programs out there now. And, where there's to make things happen, you always need money. So if money's available, you need the resources and the expertise to be able to successfully prepare these applications so that you can win the money. So we've been working quite a bit with Clearwater on that. And before I go on, I just want to thank the City of Clearwater as well for allowing me to come in and talk about this important project. We're actually one of several consultants that are on their engineer of record list, is what it's called, that they utilize for doing a lot of traffic and other things within the city. So thank them for allowing me to present this today. So, all right, so what have we done today to date? This will be the bulk of the presentation. I just want to go through some things, and that way you can see the varying things that not only we get to work on as engineers and planners, but also the varying challenges that face municipalities on a daily basis. This is a particular intersection, Bayview and State Road 60, signal warrant analysis. Now you see State Route 60, right away you think, oh, okay, it's a state project, Florida DOT, but there are usually intergovernmental agreements so that some municipalities may be maintaining some state signals, vice versa. So anyway, this intersection came up. There's proposed development going in. We did trip generation, did the FHWA signal warrant analysis, and found out that 3 warrants were satisfied. Particular note is the crash experience. There were a high number of crashes, much higher than expected. And so that triggered it, and we recommended that a signal be installed uh, possibly, and further discussed with FDOT. Now, that's important because there are multiple steps that have to go through before something actually gets implemented. So we only take it so far. We say, okay, it meets warrants, so you should consider a signal. Ultimately, because it's a state road, Florida DOT will have to make the decision on that. Briefly, here's an example of a traffic impact study that we actually prepared. Kind of. It's an interesting project because there was original impact study uh, prepared by the developers engineers. And that very often you're going to have concerns expressed by people that live in the area, drive in the area. No different here. So they actually requested if an independent study can be performed, and that's what Mead and Hunt did. We prepared our own traffic study. We compared them, came up with recommendations. Project is proceeding, but it's still under public scrutiny. So we'll have to see where this ends up. But what we ended up doing is, this is just an example of some of the things, some of the items from the report. We've got uh, this is US 19, major north-south thoroughfare, Nursery Road, and all these are, of course, residential streets. The proposed project is right in this area here, and the question is, can the streets handle the additional traffic? When it comes to schools like this, we all know, big pile of people drive in and drop off students in the morning, and then they come pick them up in the afternoon. Very often with schools like this, they don't have buses. It's all pick up, drop off. So traffic impacts are potentially even higher than normal schools. So we took a look at this, went through the traditional traffic study process, figured out expected trip generation. In this case, there is a land use for private school, which does account for the fact that there aren't buses, that it's all pickup drop off. That's pretty common. Figured out or made an estimate of where the traffic could possibly be coming from. Um, this is also different than most schools because if you go to an elementary school or even middle or high school, they tend to draw from a local area. Okay, so it's pretty easy to figure out. Yeah, they're going to be coming mostly from these residential streets, but let's just finish one thing with this, and then we'll get the questions at the end. But we'll take that one first and get to it. With this type of schools, with a charter school like this, they could draw from anywhere. Okay, they could have people that are miles away from this. So the distribution is much different. If you notice that there's very little traffic forecast to come from the local area. Most of it's going to be coming from areas outside this area. So we came up with that and then performed a study. Why don't we take that question for it? Yeah.
In the previous slide, I saw there's huge difference between morning peak hour and afternoon peak hour entry and exit.
What was that again? Sorry.
If you look at AM peak hour,
Yeah.
entry, exit total versus PM,
Yeah,
the numbers are very different.
they are. Think about how schools normally operate. And when we look at the peak hours, these are the peak hours of adjacent street traffic. So that's when the high volume's going up, the morning rush hour, the evening rush hour. In the morning, the schools tend to arrive during the morning rush hour. But in the afternoon, usually like 2, 3 o'clock, they've already gone. So when you have the normal PM peak hour, that's 4 to 6 p.m., somewhere in that, it's not the big exiting flow coming out. These are more of after school activities, sports, and things like that. So yeah, you will see that. For a study like this, often they'll want to take a look at the earlier afternoon when the school's actually letting out and see how that impacts. The other side of it is the background or the normal traffic volumes are lower usually at that time. So they may have greater impacts potentially, but the total volume is usually less gets there. So good question though. That's very important to note. So I'm not going to go into this too much, but what we did was here's the applicant study, the study that we did for the city, and we did a comparison to take a look at the differences. And there were some assumptions that were different. Some data was different, different trip generation rates sometimes, but ultimately, when it came down to it, there really wasn't all that much difference between the two studies. It was pretty consistent, and the recommendations are fairly consistent. We ended up recommending some more turn lanes off of the road. They recommended a beacon for primary pedestrian crossing. We supported that. So it makes a lot of sense. What we're working with and the concerns are of the neighbors, slightly so, that there's going to be a lot of traffic during those times. So I know there's going to be a follow-up study once the school opens, and we'll take a look at it again and say, okay, did it happen as forecast? Are there additional areas or mitigations that need to be done? And then we'll see where it goes from there. That often doesn't happen. Normally, when developments go in, they'll build it, and then that's it. They don't do a lot of follow-up studies. It's not usually part of her code. So be interesting to see if this is validated, the study is validated by the actual volumes and the pedestrians, of course, that are out there too. Those are pretty huge at that point. So, okay, so here's the second assignment under the test. This is interesting. This is Clearwater Beach. For those who have been to Clearwater, you cross the bridge from downtown Clearwater. On the other side now, there is a roundabout. Okay, there didn't used to be a roundabout. It used to look like this. So here's the bridge coming across, and it's kind of like a one-way couplet and signalized intersections and a lot going on in there. Well, it was replaced by a fairly large roundabout down there. And the question was brought to us, well, are there problems with it? Is it working well? There are any ways that we could tweak that a little bit, change some lane designations, put additional lanes in, signage, striping, whatever. Take a look at that. So we were asked to do that. I think you've probably learned already why a roundabout has advantages in a lot of ways. A lot fewer potential conflict points with vehicles. Okay, it doesn't totally eliminate crashes, but it tends to reduce them significantly, and then they tend to be less severe. Take a look. If somebody's coming this way, they kind of meet like this. You don't have the head-ons, you don't have the right angles, which tend to be the more severe crashes and the ones that lead to more significant injuries. And we took a look at that, and of course, roundabouts. This is an area that actually has a little bit of controversy to it. Pedestrians and crossing roundabouts, because intuitively you think, okay, well, will pedestrians really be safe because there's traffic constantly moving? The traffic doesn't always stop necessarily, and that's valid. And there are certainly locations and areas, different approaches that do need some enhanced pedestrian accommodations to improve safety, beacons, pedestrian crosswalks, things like that. But all in all, if you take a look at a roundabout and you compare, all the different possible conflicts with a pedestrian, a signalized intersection is definitely a tough place to cross, especially a busy one. And down by that roundabout area when it used to be signals, it was tough. It was tough to cross down there. So a lot of research is still being undertaken by this, but in general, again, it tends to show that pedestrians do tend to be a little safer in roundabouts, because as you approach, even though you have to yield and you may not necessarily have to stop, you definitely have to slow down because of the deflection point. So just because there's a big speed differential and reduction, that usually tends to help things quite a bit. And this is just a photograph of how it looks. Another big advantage is it tends to be a nice gateway feature to a community. You've entered Clearwater, you've entered Clearwater Beach, but it still has some issues, and we did need to take a look at it. And they recently did a little bit of change to designation where the roundabout had 2 travel lanes through the whole thing. They ended up changing it so it only had 1 travel lane through this area here and exclusive turn lanes. There was a lot of conflicts going on through here. And I can show you this in a diagram. Yeah, so in our study, we took a look, and the legs that there were crashes associated with, big ones, here, Mandalay Avenue, are in that area I just pointed out. It's just an area that has the highest volumes with 2 lanes going around. It's challenging for vehicles to be able to pick up what people were going for. So we did a study. We took a look at volumes. We took a look at crashes. We took a look at queuing, and also went out there and watched driver behavior. This is something that I'm starting to get involved with a little more. As engineers, we look to try to solve traffic and safety problems. Okay, but if you take a look at crashes, the vast majority of them that happen have nothing to do with engineering or improved engineering. It has to do with people not thinking, people not paying attention, um, taking chances, things like that. So, looking at this driver behavior and compliance, that told us quite a bit too, because it said, okay, how many people are potentially exposed to crashes because people are just not paying attention to the signs, or they're not slowing down like they should, things like that. So that helps to get a handle on that. We looked at queuing. This is a little tough to see, but this is the bridge coming from Clearwater, and this is on Saturday. Um, Before they did some tweaks in here, you see Saturday was actually, you know, excuse me, it's the opposite. I put these backwards, didn't I? Yeah, before it was backing up quite a bit. And with those tweaks, it opened it up a little bit. I put those in the other way. But so we did follow-up studies to see how those improvements would work, and they seem to have improved the situation out there. Yeah, see, here's the that conflict zone here. We had 2 lanes and then 2 lanes coming out here, and then people trying to figure out which lane they wanted to get in, and there's just a lot of conflicts going on here. And just kind of take a look here, and I think you can kind of visualize what's going on. You got traffic, the highest 2 volume approaches. You got pedestrians going across in different areas too. But you can see here, there's people kind of weaving in and out there, and that's not what you want, because you never know how fast the people are coming around, where they're gonna be coming from. So that's what the improvements helped with, and we think it's helped quite a bit. Yeah, so you can see those changes that were done here. Okay, so here, there used to be, you could make this right from both lanes, which isn't very safe because this lane can go through. And so they got safety issues in there. So they ended up making it so there's only one lane can go off of there. So that solved one issue. And then the other safety issue that went on is they ended up making this outer lane just go off on this heavy volume approach. It by far is the heaviest movement. And you see there's only one lane through at the roundabout. So that definitely improved the safety, but it also improved the traffic flow too. Kind of counterintuitive. You're taking a lane away. How can it make it flow better? Well, you're taking away a lot of those potential conflicts, and that helped it out quite a bit. So, we used Sidra, VSIM. We used a lot of the traditional models that we all love to do because they look nice and they tell us some good information too. So that helped us to evaluate it. But looking at it afterwards, it definitely had the positive effect. Is it working perfectly? No, because we're still growing and there's still a lot of volume out there, but it's better than it was. We took a look at some lower cost improvements too. Again, this is dealing more with the compliance end of this. Can we have additional enforcement out there to watch people, make sure they do it? Increase the signs and the beacons so we make people more aware of what's going on. Pavement markings, can we increase the visibility? Does it make sense to close off one of the approaches and find another way to handle that approach? So it's still being monitored, and it will be monitored as things go. And we'll see where that comes here. Another task, and I'm going to go through these a little bit faster here. There's actually a multimodal center that's being proposed by the Pinellas Bus Authority out here, and they're making it right in downtown Clearwater. Matter of fact, there's a proposed new city hall for Clearwater going in on the parcel to the north here. So they've been working with us, and we've been working to refine the design. There are some concerns, with specifically look how close this access is to the intersection. So they've been working to propose a few things, and that's what we've been evaluating and working with them on. because the city hall is going to go here and people, of course, walking to get on and off, this is going to have a lot more pedestrian crossings. So that's another thing that's of concern. So, we've looked at trip generation, levels of service, see what's going out there. This is mostly done using Synchro. Where the main, the main changes, the main improvements they're looking to do is, we had concerns with the bus access locations. With the site, there's not too much they can do about that. So we have to focus on other things. So they talked about restricting bus movements. So if you come and take a look back here, oh, the wrong way. They're not allowing right turns out. They're not allowing buses to come this way, or turn left here. They're going to be forcing the buses to all come in this way. Okay. And then going out this way, they can go either one, but this one, they have to go left. Again, trying to make it as safe as possible. Another thing that's still being considered and talked about, there we go, is a signal. That's the wrong. A signal at that intersection here, Myrtle and Franklin. Does it meet signal warrants even with the transit? No, it won't. And that's why there's some controversy with it. Is it really appropriate to put there or not? But with the potential of transit traffic, queuing, and pedestrian crossings, it's still being considered. So we'll have to take a look and see how that goes. It may be something where this gets built and they look at the signal after it gets built, see if it's needed. But I don't know. That's still got a long way to go. Transit only way is the other thing. We talked about the pedestrian stuff in here. The idea is to make this transit only, take out the through traffic. It'll help because it won't block any through traffic if buses are looking to turn in and out. But of course, any traffic that's on Franklin Street now is going to have to go elsewhere, and it may have impacts there. So, like that. Here's another assignment type that comes out. There was a site distance concern along an avenue here in Clearwater. So we did measurements, took a look out there and see, are there issues or is it something that's just more of a perception? And so we ended up measuring it, taking a look. The stopping site distance was fine, but the intersection site distance to FDOT standards was not acceptable in 2 locations. It was as easy as, trimming vegetation, taking out parking, a few spots, moving fences a little bit. But, this is one of those little things that you can take a look at and find a solution fairly easily and fairly inexpensively that can help solve a safety issue. We talked about grants before. Grants are huge now. So we've been helping the city really work to obtain a lot of grant funding for different projects. It's almost at the point where there's so many grants out there that they're even talking to us and saying, well, no, let's wait. We'll go after that maybe next year because it's so much. We live in good times when it comes to funding for transportation, at least. But the Safe Streets for All grant, that's the big pedestrian grant out there. It's really dealing with pedestrian safety and coming up with ways to improve identified pedestrian problems at intersections and on roads. We've been able to obtain a hazard mitigation grant for them, mast arm resilience. Resiliency is another big push by the federal government, especially with insurance rates going up. Well, we've got hurricanes here, so it's a big problem here. So there still are a lot of span wire signals that aren't as sturdy as they can be. So this is a grant to try to convert some of those to mast arms, or even to take existing mast arms and make them a little stronger. There's a TAPS grant out there. This is dealing with some of the connected vehicle technology, which is ever evolving. Infrastructure to vehicle for pedestrians. So what this is something that gets integrated as an intersection when a pedestrian crosses or presses a button to cross, the information gets put out to cars. And they say, hey, you're approaching an intersection, as a pedestrian crossing there. Again, trying to get that information going. This is going to evolve so much over the next few decades. It's going to be very interesting to watch. Although I don't know about you, but there's no way I'm ready to go and let a car drive itself with me in it. I don't know. Funny, when this started a few years ago, everybody was saying, "Oh yeah, it's only in 5 years we're going to have autonomous vehicles and everything's going to change." No, it's going to just getting acceptance of it is going to take a long time, but it's coming. Let me get there. So let's see. Signal retiming. We've done a lot of individual intersections, some corridor retimings to try to improve efficiency. Again, this is dealing mostly with the growth because normally, over a few years, something like that, the timings don't change in established places. But with the incredible amount of growth, a lot of travel patterns, traffic volumes have changed or increased. So they have to look at that more frequently. So Synchro has been in extensive use for that. Traffic impact study reviews. Uh, these are mostly since I started. I've only been out this way, working for Mead and Hunt for about 5 months. These are just some of the studies that we've been asked to review and take a look at. It's constant. It's a constant flow. But the main problem here, okay, the city of Clearwater has impact fees, so they do have to, pay an impact fee when they're coming in with a new development. But the big thing is taking a look at these in the context of all the other developments that are going in. So, for example, I mean, you may take a look and it's an apartment development, and itself, it may not make that much difference to the traffic. But when you put it on top of everything else that's going on, it adds up. So that's something that we've been looking at quite a bit. Let's see. Drew Street. Yeah, this is a very interesting project because it's a project that Florida Department of Transportation really is undertaking. But it's a city street, and it's the first parallel street to State Route 60 to the north of it. So we're voicing concerns that, okay, yeah, it's great. This is a 4-lane road now, and they want to take it down to 2 to 3 lanes, some with bike lanes, some without, depending on what section it is. So will it still work once you do this? And how safe are these bike crossings going to be with all the side streets and the various accesses? So we're working with FDOT to explore this a little more, and we'll see where it ends up. Just a plan view, so you can see here, this is no bike lanes, but they're taking the 4 lanes down to 3 and putting in some medians, channelizing stuff a little better. So it's both ways. Staff training. We talked about staff turnover. Here's a list of just some topics that we're working with them to give them a little bit more of an idea of what's going on. A lot of people that end up working in municipalities don't necessarily have the specific background in all the areas that they have to work in. It's challenging because they have to do more than one thing usually. So we're working with them to give them at least a general knowledge of what's going on and what they have to review, and we can help them with more than that. So I'm going to go quickly through these last 3 tasks because these are more specific. Task 2, we performed a citywide vehicular transportation mobility assessment. It's actually still going on. We actually set up a synchro model for the entire city, all the intersections, put it all together. Because to be honest, it just hadn't been done. Everything was kind of piecemeal. So we took a look, got that set up, helped them with special event management strategies. We assessed the signals, how they were performed. We made recommendations to see if any signals could be removed. Even though there's a lot of growth, there are still some areas that aren't, maybe the signals aren't needed. We came up with a baseline. This is existing conditions of operations and safety that will compare the future because we're just getting to the future. And here's the obligatory VSIM animation, which you have to put in pretty much in all presentations, keep people entertained. But it's actually great for visualization. It shows how it works. This is that roundabout I talked about before, and where we looked at different alternatives, and we used that to see this. It's not only great for the public to visualize, but it's great for the officials and the staff to be able to see, all right, how are different alternatives going to actually function differently? Okay, so here's the part of the citywide synchro model. We took a look, came up, identified problem areas. We've evaluated crash history and really just did a whole assessment of the city and said, okay, where are the problems and what are some of the things that you're going to need to do? Here's where we came up with some congestion and safety improvement ideas. Showed that it's going to solve some congestion issues and really kind of integrated all that together. Here's a case where it was a little more extensive. It had a failing intersection and just no place to put any more lanes. There's a lot in there as it is. So looking at some innovative things like getting rid of left turn lanes and putting in things like quadrant roads or built-in U-turns, what's called a bow tie intersection, where people have to make U-turns to they don't make lefts. They go around, make a U-turn and make a right instead. So different ways to take a look at things and see what would work best. We talked about signal retiming. We've done some specific corridors and came up with some optimized timings, some individual intersections as well. And I think this will continue over time. We also performed a left turn phase study. So take a look at intersections and say, okay, what kind of left turn phasing is out there? Looking at crashes. Is it safe enough, or are there still crashes that need to be mitigated? Future conditions, it's in progress. Right now, we're waiting for the future horizon travel model to get done. Once that happens, we plug it into the model and seeing where future problem areas could emerge and get them set up so that projects are in planning stage or design stage for when that growth occurs. Task 3, ITS fiber optic design. Here we're starting to get into the technology. So the city really didn't have a fiber network, especially when it came to the traffic signals and the information infrastructure that's going to be needed for the automated vehicles. So we're doing phase 1 of it now, taking a look, figuring out what needs there are, actually designing the fibers. We got a grant for them to be able to put it in. So this is going to start. And I think you're going to see within the next several years, probably most, if not all of the city, have fiber coverage to be able to do that. And why are we doing that? Well, we take a look at here. It tells you the different routes and the different fiber areas that are in there now or that are being proposed or looked at. You can see phase 1, quite a bit. And you can see what's being replaced by what. So it was a pretty extensive review of that. This is kind of an interesting, I'm not going to go into this, obviously, but this is a summary of all the ITS fiber and ITS infrastructure and what is being proposed. So it was done by purpose. This is kind of a summary that showed it all and how it could all be integrated. So give me a lot of upgrades. Clearwater is going to be in good shape. And what is the big reason behind this? Task 4. Transportation Management Center upgrades. They have a transportation management center. It's about a third of the size of this room. I think it's got one monitor, one PC, old computer racks and everything else. They're going to be modernizing it. They're going to be improving it. And with that, they want to look at really implementing a true ATMS system. So they're going to use the Econolite Centrax software in there, use the fibers, come in, connect to all the signals to be able to communicate back and forth to all the other ITS devices, have a true video wall with monitors so that they can monitor traffic conditions. And right from that room, they can make changes to the signal timings to respond to a special event or an incident. And then it's all going to tie into a connected vehicle pilot project with that pedestrian infrastructure I talked about before with the grant. So you can see it kind of all weaves together, kind of getting Clearwater up with the modern transportation technology. So I'm going to end with this. Where are we? What's next? The working on that future horizon model. It's been interesting because, like everywhere, there's turnover in staff. And the city engineer left for another position. So they're working on getting people in there trained and be able to do different things. The big thing is that when somebody like that leaves, they take a lot of institutional knowledge with them. And believe it or not, even I was only there 5 months. We had a lot of other people involved. We actually had a lot of the institutional knowledge, so we're able to convey that to the new staff, train them. Um, we're under a new contract. We're going to be working for a while, we hope, with them. There's a new city traffic engineer in that. David is really good at what he does, and we're working to get him up to speed on the various projects that are being done. And then finally, the connected vehicle infrastructure. This has nothing to do with Clearwater, but I just found out a lot more about this the other day, so I want to throw it in. Who's familiar with SunTrax? Okay. Believe it or not, in Florida here, we have probably one of the most advanced, if not the most advanced, transportation testing facility in the country. This is in Auburndale, so it's near Lakeland and Legoland and in that area. But it's pretty incredible what they're doing there. They have a whole bunch of layouts with testing. You can test sight distance, technology, signal timings, and everything else. It's really helpful, and FDOT makes full use of that, and I think it's going to become more and more important as we get into the automated connected vehicle technologies. It's going to be used to test it, see what works, what needs to be tweaked before it gets out into the community. So I know I went through a lot here, but I think that probably is my overall point, that there's an awful lot that municipalities have to deal with in terms of traffic. And a lot of people can play roles to help them out with that. And I think you're seeing more and more municipalities get on top of the traffic issues and really modernizing it and making things safer for the public. So, we have any questions? Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And I can hear you, but it's more for the online. Yeah.
Thanks. My question is about, well, you talked about the priority for making minor improvements throughout the city. And then at the end, you just mentioned like a major upgrade to the traffic management center.
Right.
What kind of priority does that hold over the minor projects? Like, is that kind of priority number one,
Yeah.
or is it, making those safety improvements throughout the city first and then
Yeah.
doing the big upgrades for the TMC?
Well, to be honest, I don't know if I can truly answer that question, because on the last slide, I didn't say it, but you see money and politics in there. That can change priorities as you go along, depending on something that happens. If it's a particular commissioner, needs something done, safety will almost always win out. Okay, because if it's a safety issue, something's happened. Somebody's gotten killed, somebody's gotten hurt. So the safety improvements will be big. Now, in terms of the TMC and the fiber stuff, grants have been secured for that. So it's not like if you do something small, it's going to displace those projects. Those are going to happen. But as you took a look, like fiber is phase one. There's probably going to be 5, 6 phases. So we'll have to get more money as they come up. One of the advantages of all the growth that's happening is those impact fees and tax revenues and everything are going up too. So there tends to be more funding, but it's got to compete with all the other priorities too. But I do know those are proceeding, those are going forward, and we can hope that the funding keeps going for that. And again, because of those grant programs, I don't see them slowing down anytime soon. So I have a feeling, I know we already helped them put in a grant application for phase 2 of the fiber. We're waiting to hear back on that. I think it's just going to continue.
Well, I guess you had a magic wand and you had all the money in the world. Would it make more sense to you to do the TMC first? Like, considering that all of the fiber and the new signal upgrades and all that, it's going to end up, on that one monitor with the, the small room.
Very true. Yeah. Well, and I think, they're probably going to merge at the right time. Okay. Yeah, you want to put in that fiber, you want someplace for it to go and do stuff. And so, unfortunately, sometimes it all depends on when the funding is available. you'd like to, in an ideal world, yes, you'd like to make sure that it's all set up and connects at the same time. But we're going to do our best to try to make sure that does happen. The other issue with the Tampa area in general is that things are somewhat fragmented. For example, in most metropolitan areas, you have one metropolitan planning organization that kind of combines all the different needs and plans and doles out the federal funds, and you don't have that here. Hillsborough County has its own, Pinellas County has its own, Sarasota Manatee's on its own. It's kind of fragmented, and then there's FDOT on top of it. You have all the state facilities, so it does take quite a bit of coordination to put all this together. In my honest opinion, I think the area is going in the right direction. They're not quite there yet. There's a lot more cooperation than there probably was, a few years ago. But that's the other thing too. Like, let's say the city does bring all their systems into it. Well, is FDOT going to be, tying into it? Are they going to be using it, or are they going to do their own thing? If they do their own thing, how does that interface work? How does the communication and coordination happen? Right. So there's a lot that has to go on besides just the technical, and I think that's going to go on.
All right. We also have questions from online audience.
Okay.
Now, for online audience, you can feel free to type your question in the meeting chat, as well as you can unmute yourself and ask your question directly. Okay. So this is a question from Victor Condeso. I hope I pronounced the last name correctly. I'll just use exactly words that is put in the meeting chat. So, what's causing this erosion of personnel?
Honestly, it's demand. Well, a few things. I think you're seeing, we're getting out of transportation here, but all over the place, especially in tech and some of the higher professions, you're seeing a shortage of employees. Why people after COVID, a lot of them, a lot of people didn't work for a while. Why a lot of them didn't come back, haven't come back yet, I'm not sure yet. I don't know where they're getting their money, but a lot of people didn't come back. And then, COVID did, kind of put a damper in education and a lot of things. I think we're still trying to recover from that. And again, because of in Florida, because of all the people moving down here, there's a whole bunch of money, rightly so, being put into transportation. But I don't think we've got the professionals caught up with that. Another opinion for me too is I think part of it's our immigration issues too, because there are an awful lot of talented people in other countries that would love to come and work in the U.S. And I know in recent years it's been tightened up, and it's tough. It's tough to get in to work here. It's tough to get into the school here. I know that's an issue too. So that may be something that has to look into. I understand where you want to give priority to U.S. citizens. That makes sense. They live here, it's their country. But when you have times like this, especially when there aren't enough U.S. citizens to be able to meet the needs, we got to meet the needs. We got to get the talent and bring it in. And I'm quite honest, there are some countries, especially like India, even China, where some of their research in some areas is ahead of us. And they've been doing some excellent stuff as well. So let's get people that share the knowledge. That's really what it's all about now. And I know we're talking, the ideal world. We know it doesn't always work that way, but I think that's a big part of it. And so the demand has just shot up through the roof, and there just aren't not enough people.
Yes. I think most recent statistics show in September, the job created is a double as expected, which is a big surprise.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because you see all of the concerns with inflation. Everybody's saying economy is bad and everything else, yet unemployment is still like at historic lows.
Yeah. Okay. Another question from online audience. Joe Post asked, what are the objectives of the Drew Street project?
Say that again.
DREW, the Drew Street. I think you mentioned.
Oh, the Drew Street project.
Yeah, Drew Street. What are the objectives of that project?
I think the person has hit on exactly the problem, because as the project progressed, I don't think there was quite enough or adequate communication coordination. And I don't think necessarily FDOT and the city have exactly the same objectives in that corridor. And partially rightly so. Although it's interesting, if you take a look, you would expect the objectives to be reversed because FDOT, they're going, they want to put in the bike lanes. They want to road diet. They want to keep it smaller and everything else. Whereas it's the city that, yeah, sure, they'd love to accommodate peds and bikes, but it's also a relief route for, especially if you have evacuations or events or emergencies. Again, it's the first significant road east-west north of State Route 60. So what if State Route 60 becomes clogged and now you've taken capacity off of Drew Street? Is it going to still sufficiently and effectively function as that parallel route? So I think that's what's being done now, doing additional modeling and analysis of parallel routes, just to make sure that it's going to work and function adequately with that. So I think ultimately, I think the objectives really are the same. They want to make it, more multimodal and more ped bike friendly. But the city just wants to make sure that it's still going to function when it's needed.
To follow up this, when the street diet project
Yeah.
to be evaluated, is the network-wide effects on the evacuation or on how the traffic will be diverted to other part of the road network? Is that part of the kind of evaluation of feasibility analysis of the street diet project?
Well, it wasn't initially. And again, that's one thing we flagged and said, okay, I understand what you're trying to do here, but there's a much bigger implication and function of the street than just the local traffic. So that's the additional modeling, and the work they're doing now is exactly that. They're doing some additional forecasts to figure out what diversion could be. They're looking at special events. They're looking at evacuation routes, things like that, just to make sure that's going to work. And there are things they could do. For example, they could still do a road diet and accommodate peds, bikes, but also set it up to accommodate reversal lanes, so that if you need an evacuation, if you have to, you can change them all to outbound. Okay, stuff like that. So there's a lot of different things that can be done. Well, that is a good point too, and that could be an option too. Like you have these two bike lanes, and in a case of evacuation, they're not bike lanes anymore. But again, that would go to the design to make sure it could be used in that function as well.
Thank you. Great presentation. And I have one question is related to the signal retiming.
Okay.
And what is the frequency for the signal retiming? Because I know for some special big events like the sports game or the holidays, it probably in a dynamic control condition. But for the normal days, what is the frequency?
Again, a lot of it comes down to available money and technicians to be able to do it. I know, and I can't speak specifically to that because I wasn't working on that project, but I actually worked for Manatee County for 3 years. I retimed their whole signal network. And it was, AM, noon, PM, usually sometimes a Saturday and Sunday when there were special events like that, or special conditions, like if there were a lot of churches in the area, or we had one corridor where a church let out at the same time as a weekly farmers market. And so we had to look at some special conditions. But I think as engineers, we'd love to almost have like a continuous improvement, continuous changes. We'd love to have a dozen timing plans. But in reality, it may not be practical to be able to do it. So I think that's fairly standard. I think you're looking at AM, noon, PM, and then if there's a special weekend or event timing plans.
Hello. So yeah, thank you again so much for this great presentation.
Thank you.
And as for my question, so traditionally a lot of cities in Central Florida are planned along a east-west axis, meaning it's very easy to travel east to west.
Yeah.
But in spite of all this explosive growth happening in Clearwater in particular, how is the city of Clearwater managing how is it managing the amount of growth, and what is it doing in response to that growth to plan north-south corridors, because it's very difficult to travel in Florida north and south.
Well, again, like I said, we're working on this mobility study. We did existing conditions. The next phase, which we're undergoing now, is future conditions. We're waiting for the travel demand model to be finalized so we can see what the effects of the growth will be potentially. And the next step after that is going to be, okay, run it through sync roads, take a look at stuff. Let's see where the problem areas are going to happen. And then take that and come up with some kind of improvement plan. Now that's going to take a lot of coordination, because obviously the main east-west and north-south routes tend to be either FDOT or county. Okay, so we're going to have to work with them, work with the MPOs, and see how that all fits in there. And at the same time, again, FDOT's doing their own planning, and so is the county. So you would hope that all that stuff is linking up. But yeah, there's going to have to be some additional stuff that's gone in there, but we'll have to see where it comes out, see what it shows.
Last question.
Yes.
Maybe. So you mentioned the traffic impact study, and you mentioned applicant study, this study done by city, and then it looks like somebody will go look at the both and do the comparison. So the entities involved in providing the technical service, do they have to be different companies, and how that is?
Well, in this case, there was just concerns that, okay, if a study is conducted by, it depends on who you have a controversy for. Like say, if I'm hired by say there's a mall going in, and I'm hired by the mall developer, is there a tendency for that particular engineer to tend to slant things in favor of the developer because of his client? Shouldn't be. But I think there's there could be public perception out there that it might happen. So usually, in most cases that doesn't happen. In this case, the city, and I guess it was probably through the council, agreed to use one of the time call consultants to do what they call independent studies. So in other words, it's not for development, it's stepping back, taking a look, starting from scratch, and seeing how it comes out. Again, the point of that is to try to lend a little more credibility to it and see if, make sure things will go. In this case, like I said, there wasn't all that much difference in it.
So what is the normal procedure? Normal procedure is the applicant do the study and submit it to the city, and the city review it, and then accept it and use the data for the calculate the impact fee, right?
Yes, right. And well, normally when it goes in, I mean, it's part of the site plan approval process. So as part of the site plan approval process, you're required to perform a traffic impact study to determine, if any mitigation is needed along your site frontage. In Florida, it's basically your direct mitigation is kind of limited to across the site frontage. That's tough. And when Colorado and other states I did, it wasn't. It could have been anywhere. But there's also impact fees that gets calculated at the same time. So when we say site frontage, it's usually associated with their access point. Do you need a left turn lane? Do you need a right turn lane? Do you need a traffic control signal or something like that? That'll be part of that. A lot of stuff that's outside of that will tend to be covered by impact fees. They go into a fund, and when improvements are needed, the city can use that to fund those improvements. But a lot of it it depends also on the size and significance of the development. What kind of traffic are they potentially generating?
Okay, any other questions? Oh yeah, Mandy.
Okay. So I have a question about task 1. So after we analyze a section of the network and see, okay, this is a problem. There is some congestion or safety issues. So how you came up with the solution and with improvement? Is it experience, you came up with the experience, or there is some software? Do you test many different improvements and select the best one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, usually there's usually what we call kind of a menu of different options that can be put out there. We'll work internally. We have hundreds of engineers that are involved in traffic. So we'll usually work and talk with people and say, what do you think? What would seem to work best here? We'll work with the city to say, okay, what do you like to do? And then we can say, yeah, that probably work here, or no, we may have to tweak it with that. So yeah, a lot of it is experience. A lot of it's knowing the options that are out there, and coming out and seeing what's going to be the best fit for it. And let's face it, again, there's money is always a part of it. We'll have to take a look, and there may be one that may not be quite as effective, but it's going to be a lot cheaper. Maybe we do that first. Sometimes you do an iterative approach. Where you try one thing, and if it solved an issue, great. If it didn't, well, maybe you got to bump it up to the next level and try something else. And then sometimes when things are more extensive, we'll even propose and try to do a pilot project where you put something out with kind of temporary stuff, especially when you're doing a road diet like Drew Street. That's what we're kind of the city's trying to get FDOT to do, is do a pilot project where you put some temporary bollards out there and you close it and you get it down to the travel lanes and see how it works and see if there are any issues. And that way you can see if there are any changes that need to be made, or this is going to be a parking lot and it just isn't going to work. So yeah, there's a lot that comes into it. Yep.
All right, great. Thank you so much for your
Thank you.
presentation. Please join me to give another round of applause to
Thank you.
Mr. Shanghai. Thank you so
Appreciate it.
much. All right, so next week we're going to have Professor Jorge Lava from Georgia Tech to join us, and he's an expert in traffic flow theory as well as the connected automated vehicle. So I will look forward to seeing you next Friday as well, okay? All right, thank you for being here, and please enjoy the pizza. And I thank all the audience online. Thank you. Have a great weekend.